Before you call Jordan the GOAT, let's see this because there's one game where Larry actually flipped the script. So let's lock in with how to skip to see what actually happened.
Being on the throne is not just about being the king, it's about being the rival to beat. And you also got to be willing to prove your superiority to any opponent who aspires to kingship. And that was exactly the situation for Larry Bird in 1986.
I'd much rather guard Michael Jordan than Larry Bird because you have to play the game as a thinker when you're playing him.
The Celtics forward was not only coming off one of the most successful individual seasons in league history, winning his third consecutive regular season MVP.
Bro, it's not just about being a king. Can you defend your throne? I know it was really crazy having Larry Bird and Michael Jordan on the same court. I mean, this was a tough competition between the both of them, just like Larry had with Magic Johnson back then. And having young Jordan coming into the league and facing someone as tough as Larry, bro, it's really interesting, man.
And hoisting the Larry O'Brien while earning his second Finals MVP.
I'm really proud to receive this award for the third time.
Bird was changing the game. The whole conception of the small forward was different after his time in the NBA. But just when he looked like he was the undisputed king, a new lion was coming to the Pride. A young Michael Jordan came into the league making a difference right from the start. And from the very first moment, he made it clear to Larry that he wasn't afraid of him at all. The Celtics were still the better team, but MJ put on one of the greatest performances in playoff history against
Bro, MJ came in with pride at this point. I wouldn't say pride, but I would say confidence, because why would you go and let the king know that you're coming to let him know that you are not afraid of him? Yeah, Larry knows you ain't scared, but he's definitely going to trash talk you and do what he intends to do to you, because I know that for every rookie that comes into the league, there is always a welcome ceremony from Larry to that rookie. He posters you, he directs you, he trash talks you, and he lets you know who runs the courts.
Boston in 1986, making a statement about who was the better player on the hardwood. And from then on, the rivalry burned hotter than ever. See, Larry Bird had a mission. For his entire career, he had been the undisputed best player in the NBA. But now, a 23-year-old kid who was averaging 37 points per game was challenging him for the reign of the king of world basketball. The Bird had already proved it all. His legacy was unmatched, but his honor was in jeopardy. And that was something that he wouldn't allow. The reason was simple. Bird was bidding to become the GOAT of basketball. The forward had been breaking every barrier in existence since arriving to the NBA. In 1979, Bird signed a contract with the Celtics to become the highest paid rookie in league history at $650,000 per year.
Yeah, bro. This is crazy. Bird was the highest paid rookie in any sport just a couple of weeks. How crazy can that be? Before the 1979 NBA draft, bro, imagine being worth that much as a Dane. That money is equivalent to a couple million today. Larry is really, really crazy, man. Imagine having so much confidence and believe in yourself that you are worth this much to earn by as a Dane. This is a whole lot, man. As a rookie.
But as soon as he arrived in the NBA, Larry wreaked havoc. He finished fourth in the MVP race during his rookie year. During the next 3 seasons, not only did he win the NBA ring for the first time in 1981, but he also finished second in the MVP race 3 times. And his averages during this stint? 22.6 points, 10.9 rebounds, and 5.7 assists per game. But something happened during the summer of 1983. Bird went from being the second best player in the league to a completely legendary player, and absolutely superior to his eternal rival Magic Johnson. Thus began his incredible 3-year stint in which he became one of the greatest players of all time. From 1983 to 1986, Bird achieved 3 NBA MVPs. After winning the 1984 championship and being, for the first time in his career, MVP of the finals, Bird ascended in the NBA Olympus.
Yo, this is one hell of crazy stats for Bird. Imagine winning all these things, all these titles, all these champions, like being confident and the best trash talker ever. We all know Larry's gameplay was always on point, playing with so much confidence and belief. He is just like he prophesied. I mean, look at the stats. Can you tell me which of the NBA player present day got this type of stats? Don't tell me Corey. But if you have any idea, drop it in the comment section. I need to know if there's any NBA player that plays that has the stats as Larry had. Because Larry Bird drains the game winner, bro. Imagine winning 1981, beating the second position 3 consecutive times through 1982 and 1983. It's actually amazing. That's mind blowing, bro.
And wrote his name in the history books forever. During those 3 seasons, Larry averaged 26.2 points, 10.1 rebounds, and 6.7 assists per game, while continuing to be an elite defender, by the way. This was his status just prior to the start of the 1986 playoffs, a versatile forward who was capable of doing everything on the court. There had never been a big man who had the skills of a perimeter player in traditional basketball until he came along. And not just because of his iconic 3-shot, becoming one of the first small forwards that played the power forward position to be able to stretch the floor. His incredible passing ability allowed him to become a true leader for those Celtics.
Damn, bro. Larry's passing ability was so incredible that he made him a leader for the Celtics, man. He was a good passer, side trash talking and knowing how to play IQ level. Larry was an amazing passer. Now look at all the stats. Why would you be comparing Michael Jordan to Larry? But I know in some sense, Michael and Larry, they both got some similar capabilities, but I assure you that Michael never won Larry.
Both on offense and defense. But in order
Larry, at number 7, Larry Bird was a legendary all-around player who won 3 titles with the Celtics and changed the league. Bro, Larry changed the league with Magic Johnson. It was amazing, bro. He made the NBA. He played the NBA according to his tune.
To win his 3rd ring in 1986, he first had to get past a team with a major stud that was starting to make some noise. And just less than a full year later, it was March 27th, 1987. The Celtics, with a record of 51 wins and 19 losses, were coming off a back-to-back to face a Bulls team with a record of 35 wins and 35 losses. That, by the way, was also coming off a game the night before. Bird was having a pretty good season with averages of 28 points, 9 rebounds, and almost 8 assists per game that allowed him to finish 3rd in the MVP race. While Jordan, who would end up finishing 2nd, was averaging an absurd 37 points per game. The Celtics came out with an unusual starting 5 due to the absence of Dennis Johnson, who was replaced by Jerry Sitching. And playing away from home, they knew it would be a tough game. But right from the first plays of the game, Bird showed what kind of night he was going to have. His off-ball movement was elite, basically, because of his enormous basketball IQ, his fakes. I mean, this was one of the most dangerous men in basketball without the ball in his hands.
Damn, bro. Larry Bird is one of the most dangerous players in the NBA without the ball in his hands. This is mind-blowing, bro. Imagine being the most dangerous NBA player as a Dan without the ball in your hands. I mean, you know what this implies. Larry was calculative. He used his IQ. Permit me to say Larry used 100% of his IQ to execute stats on the court. Because it's actually amazing. It's actually shocking that the ball is not in Larry's hand already, but he knows what he's going to do with the ball the moment it gets to him. I mean, who does that? And the moment the ball gets to him, he doesn't think twice. If he wants to pass, it goes. And if he wants to make baskets, straight up. Larry is who he think he is.
That, coupled with the gravity he generated from his mid-range and long-range shooting, was lethal. Plus, he was a typical player who was blessed by the divine touch, okay? But once again, his arsenal from the low post was unpredictable. It's easy to find samples of his off-ball ability and gravity, as it was often his easiest way to score. But on this day, his mid-range shot was touched by a magic wand. He just couldn't miss, and he was able to abuse it again and again and again. Meanwhile, Jordan began to realize the enormous attention he was getting from the Celtics defense, which every time he attempted a drive sent multiple bodies to stop him. But far from getting advantages only without the ball in his hands, Larry was also able to score in ISOs from the low post, a move that decades later, Mavs legend Dirk Nowitzki patented and made his own. So the Bulls realized they had no choice but to do what the Celtics did with Jordan, a virtually continuous 2-on-1 when he had the ball in his hands. So Bird...
Yo, they had to place two defenders on Larry. And do you think this would work today? If we had Larry today and Larry is being placed, is being guarded by two defenders in every game, do you think Larry is going to outsmart them? Because listening to this, it's actually mind blowing. Because why do you have to place two people on one person just because you know he's a superstar, he's strong, he's the best? I mean, come on. There are other players who deserve that other than Larry. But why would they do that to Larry? I guess they feared Larry. That's why Larry is the boss, man. Larry is a bully. He was a bully, man.
basically said, you know what? I'm going to hurt them in transition. Thus came the end of the first quarter, in which somehow the Bulls managed to stay close on the scoreboard, trailing by only 1 point, 36-35. Bird had a spectacular first quarter in scoring, 20 points, nothing more, nothing less. So he began to take advantage of that extra attention to test his versatility. He was able to transform garbage into gold. Case in point, this loose ball, which he turns into a great assist. And if there's one thing you don't want, it's for the guy who's destroying you from mid-range to start showing signs of his playmaking ability.
Jesus Christ. You don't want to show signs to Larry that you are a loser when he's destroying you from mid-range. And all of a sudden, start showing you his real capabilities. I'm sure Larry did that often, especially to rookies. You may think this man, you'll hear a lot of stories until you meet him in court. You receive your own special welcome party. And damn, you get cooked over and over again. I'm sure Marco's experience was a tough one. Marco's experience with Larry was a tough and competitive one. But let's see. I think Michael made it through.
Bird was unleashed, and players like Kevin McHale appreciated it. Even when they didn't count, Larry's passes were simply spectacular. No, he really didn't even need to score to be the most impactful player in the game. In some cases, MJ had to defend the Celtics star too, and the size difference played a key role in these situations. But knowing that the half-court offense was very difficult with two defenders on top of him, Bird continued to make use of scoring in transition. And what was more shocking, a player of his size dropping threes like it's nothing. But incredibly, despite Bird's 33 points in the first half, the Bulls managed to go into halftime trailing by only 3 points. Thanks in part to the 16 points MJ had scored during the first two quarters, of course. When the third quarter began, Larry kind of relaxed offensively. He decided to use his gravity to try to find better options for his teammates, as he knew he would need one more offensive threat to take the game easily. And stepping up on defense, the Celtics got stops on Jordan that allowed them to get easy baskets on the other end of the court. But Bird continued his
We see that Marco was giving the Celtics tough time. But Larry never relented. He kept playing with his confidence and IQ and athleticism in check. And Larry added more effort. He didn't just sit and relax and be like, oh, I'm the only one carrying the whole game. Because if you look at the gameplay, Larry carried the court. He carried the Celtics along. He was a key player. So I guess that's why it was hard for him to beat. But despite all, he still prevailed.
Role for most of the rest of the game, as he led his team on defense with actions like this one. He was certainly a player who had no problem getting his hands dirty either. But when Larry attempted a shot during the second half, it was to score.
Damn.
And he kept sending occasional reminders to the Bulls defense. Reminders that one player was not going to be enough to guard him. In front of a United Center packed with more than 18,000 fans, the forward was having a game. The Celtics allowed just 22 points in the third quarter, by the way, and managed to head into the final quarter with a 9-point lead. And after resting for a couple of minutes, Larry continued to do whatever his team needed to do to get the win. These Celtics were good. I mean, like, really good. Bird was that piece of the puzzle that served as a wild card, too. That player you could put in any role, in any part of the court, in any situation, and who was going to be able to generate advantages on his own. And during the last quarter, the tone did not change. Bird continued to abuse from long distance as he had been doing all game. He continued.
Damn, bro. We can see what Larry now did. He figured that he couldn't do it close range because they put two players on him, two defenders on him. And we know how hard that would be, trying to make a three or make a lay. So he applied something that they couldn't get access to. When it comes to him, he applied a long range three, man. And it's actually insane. From every angle on the court, Larry made his three. And it was smooth, bro. It was smooth.
To play the simplest yet most dominant basketball anyone had ever seen. But one of the virtues of genius is to make what seems complicated really easy, you know?
Yeah.
And despite the Bulls' final scare, who managed to cut the deficit from 11 points to 4, the Celtics defense stepped up to close the game. Bird did it. Months after MJ scored 63, the forward only had to play 100% for one half to show him that if he wanted to, he could do it too. 33 points in the first half, 41 in the game. That went down in history as one of the greatest displays of ego any player in the league could perform. The difference is that Larry's ego also made his teammates better.
Yeah. Larry's ego made his teammates better. Yes. Larry was prideful, but it made his teammates buckle up. That's amazing. I mean, come on. Some people, I know there are some of his teammates that didn't like him. But definitely, if you knew Larry back then, if you played with him personally back then, Larry's ego was something that to you may seem annoying, but you have to buckle up because Larry was a player like you. So you can't have just your teammates carrying the whole team when you are drafted and when you know how to play too. So what's the need of you being in the NBA if you don't know what to play? So they need someone with ego that is strict, that will brush them up. And I guess that's what Larry did. He did it to his teammates. And yeah, of course they have to buckle up.
Weeks later, the Celtics met the Bulls again in the first round of the playoffs. And the result was the same as last year. Boston managed to advance by a score of 3-0. Yeah, so 6-0 in playoff games against Jordan's Bulls. That's the record that is stuck in history. When they met, Larry's Celtics were always better. So good that not even a superhero performance could stop them. And so Larry Bird, along with the Pistons of Isaiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer, became the thorn in MJ's side that he really could never get rid of. Bird did not win the ring that season. Magic Johnson's Lakers did. The other side of the three-headed monster that dominated basketball worldwide. But even if he didn't win the championship, Larry did world basketball a favor. He taught Jordan that he still had a long way to reach his full potential. He taught him that scoring isn't always enough, and that he needed to become a leader capable of bringing out the best in his teammates. And without the lesson that the greatest player in Boston Celtics history, with Bill Russell's permission, taught MJ, it is likely that basketball history would have been completely different. And Jordan and Bird's rivalry continued to cause a stir in the league, but they never met again in the playoffs. Larry would go on to post a 17-11 record against Michael's Bulls during his career until a serious heel injury followed by back problems greatly short.
See, Bird kept on cooking MJ. He kept on cooking MJ. He kept on cooking MJ, man. It was really, really tough, bro. Yeah, the Celtics must have met the Bulls at various intervals, at various games. And yes, the Bulls will beat the Celtics. But there's one thing that I'm sure about. Mark Jordan never beat Larry. It was too bad that time in Larry's life that he had injuries and he still showed up for work, though it slowed him down for a bit. But Larry, spectacular, man.
Shortened his career. Injuries that not only brought about the end of the Boston Celtics dynasty, but also sent them into a sinkhole from which they could not climb out of until 20 years later. And we all know that history is written by the winners, and very few people have won more than Jordan. And Larry Bird has kind of gone down in history as underrated compared to Jordan. but he was a forward who changed the traditional definition of basketball and who starred in one of the most competitive eras ever. And let's not forget that from 1983 to 1986, there was not a single player on the planet able to face him. No one. All right, that's it for this one.
So, you see, there was no single player on the planet that was able to face Larry Bird. For a whole season, bro, all through 1986, no player that could face Larry Bird. Bro, Larry Bird was the greatest competition, and permit me to say, the people that Larry gave regard to later on, they were not more than 5, just 3 or 4. Let's say Magic Johnson was there, and include Scott McHale, Kevin McHale rather, and Michael Jordan. But we see why and how Larry Bird humbled Michael Jordan. With his stats, we all know who the real boss is. So let me know what I made mistake about, and if you think I should react to the next topic, drop below in the comments. And I need to know what your take is on this. I'll see you in the next one, Wednesday.